Can we get some fries for the table?
I do know that you struggle sometimes with
with what you're wearing.
with what I'm wearing.
I do. I really do. I don't understand it.
I don't see the point of dressing up for a podcast. I want to be comfortable.
Are you uncomfortable in the rest of your clothes?
You know what? It's surprisingly, I am really uncomfortable in jeans these days.
But you're wearing dungarees now, aren't you?
I am.
And you find them uncomfortable?
I do. It's kind of a weird COVID thing, I think.
Oh.
I feel like everything that we put on that isn't comfortable isn't worth it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
but you're all thin and stuff. So
right.
I
So
don't know why
everything fits
anything-
me.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky that way.
Yeah.
But I really hated the ankle suit style that rocked for about 3 years of the summer. The further went up the calf thing. I hated that.
I hate the weird blue with the brown shoes suit that every single guy gets married in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't like that. And I've always liked the blue and brown, but then when it became rampant.
It's a certain type
It's
of
a certain
blue.
type of blue
Yeah.
that every dude has, and it just makes me absolutely nuts when I see it.
One thing that I find interesting about you is that you will remember stuff that you really liked when you were younger. And you will actually go and find it
Yes,
and buy it again.
I do.
That's crazy nuts to me because I, as internet dude, know everything about buying and selling and used goods in the market and how upcycling works, all
Look at
that
all the
BS.
things you know. Yeah.
Yes. Did I mention that?
That you know everything. Yeah. Yeah. And
The last thing I would have thought is that Clayton Peters is a vintage label fashion shopper.
absolutely.
Remembers the types of jackets.
Yeah. Yeah, because there were certain cuts that I liked, and I lost weight. I lost a significant amount of weight, and I wanted to replenish my wardrobe with staples. And all my clothes are standard clothes. Like I can wear my clothes for 10, 15 years. It won't make a lick of difference. You won't know that it's
Really?
out of style or in style because I don't do any of the trend. I'm preppy most of the time. So it's
preppy
it's
itself.
evergreen. Yeah.
Right.
It's evergreen.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I do very little formal work right now. And the formal work that I do is cumbersome.
Doo-doo. He said
And
doo-doo.
with far more mature people. And so I'm wearing what I want to wear.
But you used to really.
I used to have a clothing sponsor.
Yeah, you were turned out every time I saw you. Your gear was on point.
I'm the dude.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happened? So COVID, you just stopped wanting to dress. You just gave up.
No.
You
I
became-
just don't think a podcast requires me to necessarily. But at the same time, I'm a heck of a lot more comfortable wearing this than I would be if I was wearing a loose tie with a nice shirt and jacket. But what I do find interesting is I'm not setting a good example for my kids.
That's true.
So my dad is a Ministry of Labor employee, worked 35 years, went downtown, worked for the government, did all that jazz, put on a suit and tie every day.
Right.
And that's where I learned how to dress appropriately for work. There was no business casual. And I'm definitely not setting a good example for my kids in the way I'm.
Do they not like to dress? They're teenagers, right?
They're teenagers. This is one of their hats.
That explains a lot. Yeah.
The problem with setting a Peters up is that they'll always take it.
I'll always take it.
Not even if you're.
Do they have any interest in clothing? Like, is there any sort of passing sort of like, oh, I like this fit? There's a lot of kids on social media that are.
There's not a collection side where it's like I need the first of the X or I would like to get the classics of the Y, but they really respect certain vintage things I have. So I, like the
Not this, but other things that you have.
What else you want to talk about today? Because
Are they
obviously,
sneakerheads?
obviously, no one wants to know our factory outlet choices.
Are they sneakerheads? Your kids?
No. I'm really lucky. I think that they've only developed a taste for things after we've introduced it to them, not as a result of coming back from school and hanging out with 15 people who like this or watching a rapper or somebody rocking certain things. That's not their taste. But if I introduce them to the quality type things, or my brother does, then they'll get interested in it.
That's really interesting. How many kids do you have?
3.
3.
How many do you have?
I have 1.
Yes.
I do. And what are they? Your children?
They are.
They are children. What are they? What are these children of yours? What?
My eldest is a daughter.
Yeah. She identifies as a daughter.
Yes.
Nice.
And I have 2 sons.
And daughter's the eldest?
Yes.
Oh. Usually it's the other way around.
Usually, as in where? In some karmic
No, where
atmosphere
like men have like 2 boys, and then somebody's like, we need to have a girl. We need to have a daughter.
That's a story you either read or wrote. I don't know.
No, it's the truth. It's a fact.
It's not.
It is.
No, there's no.
Yeah, there is.
There's probably like not even an odds.
Either that or then when you had your second one, what
Right.
made you have a third one? How did you get to the third? Did you consciously decide let's
the
have
exact
3?
same thing I did the first 2 times.
Okay, so you sneezed and it was over, and then
Yeah. I was gone for a week. And it was.
no. But did you have a conscious decision to have 3? Was there like a lot?
I didn't have a conscious decision to have 1. I thought we were just practicing the whole time.
No, seriously.
Well, it wasn't a punchline.
No, I got that.
Oh.
No.
I keep forgetting that
No,
I'm in
no,
front
but-
of an audience.
But did you make a conscious decision to have 3 children? Look at how uncomfortable you're getting.
I think that Katie and my wife is of 4 and I'm of 3. And we realized it would be amazing if we could have something close to a big family. I don't think we realized how lucky we were going to be in that attempt.
Oh, nice. That's good. Sorry, I froze up for a second there.
What? It is it's kind of a weird way to respond, but because there's so many insensitivities associated with people having kids, you kind of just want to leave it with, it wasn't a miracle, but wasn't planned. And just now.
And did you talk about that before you got married? Like how many kids you were going to have, or?
Probably without really thinking about how hard it was going to be or expensive or any of that.
Is it hard?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
In what way?
Well, you're asking me like you're not a parent.
Well, I have 1 son. I don't find it that hard, actually. I find parenting like really easy. After parenting my brother our whole lives, right? I basically raised him. We were latchkey kids, right? And both my parents worked, and I was responsible for him. So, for me, parenting has been an ongoing thing for like over 50 years now.
Right.
I've been basically parenting, right? So when we were lucky enough to have my son, because we had trouble having a child, and it all seemed to come quite naturally to me. At least I think it did. I hope I'm doing a good job. I'm not sure now. Now you got me second guessing myself. But I don't actually find.
I'd imagine you're probably second guessing yourself all the time as a result of that experience.
But what do you find hard about it? Like, what is the? I'm not in an accusational way. I'm just curious, like what you find difficult about.
Well, for one, I didn't have the running start that you had. I never had that security to stop and say to myself, "Oh, I even had a younger sibling to be."
You're the youngest.
I am the youngest. So is my wife. I'm in an interracial marriage.
So exotic.
What's that?
You're so exotic.
Yeah, I pretty much the first one who did everything. I first interracial marriage
in the world.
First brown guy on TV, talking about movies. I think first brown guy in Oakville at some point. But yeah, and all of that to say that what were we talking? Oh yeah, what do I find hard? I find it hard that nobody talks about how hard it is.
Okay.
And because of that, it's really isolating in the experiences. So I'll give you an example. There's no bar at the end of the night where you're kind of trying to figure out in your head why certain things happened and certain things haven't happened yet. Does that make sense?
With regards to?
With regards to things in our kids' lives. Like why the first time you had an argument with somebody and you saw the fire in your kid's eyes, right? Like, I don't know who to turn to and talk to about that in my life. And so when I say it's hard, it's because it's a lot of me figuring it out without anybody to relate to. My dad doesn't relate to it. He didn't raise a female. My brothers started raising kids after, kind of technically, and not in the same wheelhouse. So that's where I feel like it's hard. I don't feel like I have people in the media business I can turn to about media stuff.
So is this daughter specific then?
No.
It's all 3.
It's all 3. Yeah. Especially because, look, man, we're very insecure. We're in a very insecure. How do I put this? We feel like we're being judged way more than we're being judged. And from a parenting perspective, you've got inputs from every imaginable thing. So in the same vein, you might say, I think I'm doing a good job. I don't necessarily think about whether I'm doing a good job or not. I'm just consistently worrying about things as a result of the changes in their lives. And in many cases, worrying about things that I have absolutely no control over.
Like?
Their reaction to situations, their understanding of, my kids play a lot of sports.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. All three of them do, right?
All three of them do. And this year, for example, and the last couple of years, they've been on the other side. So two of my kids will be umpires, right, in baseball.
Oh.
And so as a parent who has been mean to umpires before when my kid was playing, it changes the dynamic and the way you are obviously. But then, of course, you worry. Do your kids have the emotional capacity to handle a parent yelling at them? Can they make a judgment call and then reverse it? All of that's important to the people that are playing the game. But to my kid, it's pressure, right?
Have you had a situation where parents have gotten in the face of your kids?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I
That
haven't
would freak
been there.
me out.
I
you
haven't been
haven't
there.
been there for that?
No.
Katie was there for that?
I think Katie was there for the one time. No, I wouldn't say face. Like it wasn't. No other parent would want with cell phones now. No other parent wants to be on camera with that.
Okay, so they're not.
But definitely, like the holler is loud.
Yeah.
And what the F are you doing, etc. is very disgruntled.
Right.
But not in your face like a 70s umpire.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, that's what I thought.
No.
That's what I always thought.
But parents are dicks.
Yeah, no, my son doesn't, he only plays soccer, and that's something that's come to him in the last 12 months, but I was always afraid that he would take up hockey because I really don't like hockey. I really don't care about hockey, and I know it's a big thing in this country. And all the hockey parents that I've known, it's a grueling slog having a kid who plays hockey. And you have to go to those tournaments, and you have to go to like Timmins and Northern Ontario and all these small towns and things. And then there's, from what I've seen, there's a big psychological element with a lot of these parents where a lot of them are vicariously living through their children playing hockey. And then the other dream, of course, is to get their kid into the NHL. And so there's all this extra pressure. Then there's always this extra aggression in the stands. And my concern was always, because I've got a very bad temper, that if somebody, said some shit to my son, right, it would be really hard for me to control myself. And that always concerned me because I don't know that I could actually, and I know that they've got a lot more regulations and they've tightened things up and they've got zero tolerance and all that kind of thing. But I know that hockey parents in particular in Ontario or in Canada can be super aggressive, right? And super, super hyped up about their kids playing hockey. And that was always a concern that I had once we had a boy. I'm like, shit, I hope he doesn't play hockey. And thank God he doesn't. And he's only just taken up soccer because that hockey parenting thing and then having to do those long schleps out into the country, no offense, is that...
No, I do it. I mean...
Yeah. And...
Yeah, it is a lot of what you describe. Obviously, I'm super, super... like we don't have any misgivings about the fact that they play. We're lucky that the two kids that we have, they're not like what our youngest kid is a goalie. So his aggression doesn't really sort of transfer that way. And it's a little different. And our middle child is just getting into hitting and stuff like that. But who knows what'll happen in that respect. The parents are aggressive. I'm currently working on a project right now that's designed around changing the future perception of hockey and trying to make it a little bit more inclusive, let's say. It's going.
Is that from a diversity perspective or?
It's what I'm, pardon me, what I'm doing is basically trying to take this idea of bringing it back to the person over the player. And I think we've gone too far in this idea in the hockey game that the player supersedes everything. And so rich parents will buy the player everything they need to succeed and all the courses and all the extra stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it becomes very exclusive for that player to be able to play in Canada at that level. You can't just be a wonder kid and have a really exceptional way of playing hockey and expect to get treated, extra special and find your way into the league. It doesn't happen in Canada that way. And so my goal in what we're doing is to focus back on what does the actual person need, whether it's through economics or through diversity or through whatever the case is, access, rink time. And that's what we're trying to deconstruct right now. Because in general, the sport has a really crappy rap. It's white male, aggressive, dominated. The headlines but I'm also, on the other hand, paying to the church, right? I'm paying to the hockey leagues. I'm paying for my kids to be trained in these sports. So I want to make that difference in a place that is a little bit more about the future of it rather than reactive. Because right now, a lot of the stuff that's happening is reactive. And to your point, it's because of the fights in the stands. Have
you seen fights in the stands?
I've seen fights in the stands. I've been boiled over. I've been that guy that's looked at people and thought, like, what are you, crazy? Refs have bugged me. My blood is boiled. But I've also learned so much about why my brother would never put their kids in hockey or why.
You think of me as your brother?
I do, definitely. But
I know what you mean.
Everything that you describe is the reason I'm doing what I'm doing.
Okay.
Because all of those perceptions still ring true because that's what's on the front page still. And when you go to the arena, I mean, it's so fulfilling, dude. Don't get me wrong. Watching your kids grow up and being able to actually tackle something that you were not able to do is great. But we have emotional sense, right? Like we have that emotional IQ, that EQ that they call it, right? Where we understand that it's not about trying to make it to the league. It's a little bit more about finding a way to fulfill something you've worked towards. And I'm just lucky that so far my kids, even when they've stopped playing sports, that they realize that that's what the intention was.
And what about fights? Have they had fights on the ice?
No.
Oh, that's good.
I think you get kicked out at this age.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
But when I see like the NHL fights,
yeah.
I got to tell you, it seems really gay to me when hockey players fight.
Yeah.
Like I know it's supposed to be like this rough and tumble thing,
they want to make out.
It does look like they want to make out.
Yeah.
They look like they're seconds away from making out. Every time they get into a fight,
right.
It's just like, I love you, man. And they're about to make out any minute now. It's the gayest fighting ever.
Yeah.
And I don't mind, like I like boxing.
It's like proper love tension.
There's a sexual tension to their fighting. It's very,
really
very
interesting.
gay.
Yeah. And you know what?
I mean that in the best possible sense of the word.
Well, I mean, a gay fight is probably the best fight you could witness live.
Swords. Yeah.
But that said, it's interesting because I wonder if that take on hockey fighting would change hockey fighters' perception.
I wonder if it would. Yeah, they're like, "Is this dude?"
You know what?
Like, dude, is
we
this
should
gay?
Find a clip.
Does this make us gay if we
just
fight?
Slow it down to music, just a tad.
Yeah.
Like make it a little less.
Yeah,
fast.
we'll do Careless Whisper in the background
and have the close-ups of their eyes because they lock eyes. Like
they do. They do. There's a passion there, and it's not just about the game or the puck.
Let's take our clothes off.
Yeah, there's clothes coming off. There's gloves coming off. There's helmets.
There's gonna be a proposal one day.
There is, which is fine.
In the middle of a hockey fight.
They just need to own it.
Oh my gosh,
they just need to own it.
Brilliant way to propose.
They just need to own it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always been my issue with hockey.
So back to soccer though, you will start to hear the aggression in soccer from parents.
What I've been told and what I have seen in a very limited fashion, but what I've been told by other soccer parents is that it's a little bit more diminished because it comes from a more a Eurocentric perspective, if you will, that like a lot of the parents that are at these games there's a lot of European ancestry, right? And a lot of them are not, there's a passion, but they're not in that same gay hockey fighting kind of passion from the stands. Okay, I checked with a number of people, and I've seen it myself. Yeah, they want the guys to do well, but
no
they
one
don't.
said the hockey fighting in the stands had anything to do with your Careless Whisper scenario.
Well, that could be happening too.
No,
because
second of all,
Mm-hmm.
Are you justifying aggression in a sport?
No,
Because
no, I'm not
some
justifying.
heritage
No, there's
built
actually
in?
no. I'm actually not. I'm not justifying it. I'm actually saying that there is less aggression in the stands, at least
In
at the young
soccer?
level. Okay, I know in Europe and in England there's soccer hooligans and there's crazy racism and things like that, especially in continental Europe when it comes to soccer and the soccer players. But what I'm talking about is just at this sort of 10-year-old, 12-year-old, teen level of soccer playing. It doesn't have that same aggression that you have in the hockey world.
It's going to happen very soon, and I'll tell you why. Because you'll start to notice how boys who are slightly bigger than your son use their bodies. And that's going to affect his positioning because he's learning and blah, blah, blah. And then you'll hear parents, because parents chirp at the ref with a, hey, where's the card, right? Not necessarily doing
Hey.
no, I didn't.
No,
I didn't pick what European country I was doing.
I heard.
Generally did EU. You picked
EU.
You picked
EU.
What? You have three
Hey,
countries in mind now.
hey,
I'm not offending any country.
Referee.
No.
K-Cats.
What was the
Referee
name of the-
K-Cats.
what was the name of the
Market
chef?
boy, what's
What was the name of the chef that was on that no one could understand?
the Swedish chef on the Muppets?
No, that was
Oh.
the Swedish chef.
Beardy hurdy.
What was the Italian chef?
Hurdy.
Pasquale.
Oh, Pasquale's Kitchen.
Yeah, what a great guy.
Oh, you knew him?
No,
Oh, okay.
I went to the kitchen though.
Okay. And scene. Okay.
Is he alive?
I don't know. I never watched it.
The Urban Peasant. Did you watch The Urban Peasant?
No.
Did you watch any cooking shows when you were a kid?
Only the Galloping Gourmet, which gives away my age.
I don't know the Galloping
Gourmet. Yeah, he was great. What's his name?
That was like when there was two channels.
His last name was Kerr. Graham Kerr, I think his name was.
Oh.
Yeah, he was the Galloping Gourmet. That was the only guy that I knew.
So you're going back on the road.
I am.
How do you feel about that, man?
I feel good.
Yeah?
I feel good. But I've got mixed feelings about being away. When this is airing, I will be somewhere in deepest, darkest Africa, I believe. Probably at the time of this airing. Dr. Livingston, I presume. I will have my pith helmet on and I will have one of my many khaki outfits.
They didn't get sunlight in Africa during a certain time.
No, they definitely get sunlight. Hence the
Okay, so
anyway.
I do have a serious question about it. What triggers you to stop and say,
that was trigger, right? Okay, good. Yeah, go on.
Honestly, because there are so many things that would make me stop and say, next. Whatever.
What do you mean? About touring?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't like traveling. You said that.
I have not had the luxury of traveling often in my life, and therefore...
Did you go back to India as a child?
I did.
And?
I've been everywhere in India, other than...
Where's your family from in India?
Bihar.
Where's Bihar? North, south, east, west?
North.
Mm-hmm.
East. Where are we? West, northwest.
Okay.
With Nepal on the other side.
Oh, nice. Nipples.
Or Bangladesh on the other side.
Oh, so you're close to West Bengal then?
I don't know, man. I'm not personally close to any of it.
But did you enjoy it?
I'll tell you, my India trips have a wonderful place in my memory for so many things that have happened in my life subsequently, but also never drove me to think, oh, I can't wait to get back.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's everything that it should be. It helped
You saw
me
your grandparents and
at the time.
cousins.
Yeah. It's so weird. I've had best of both worlds 100%, but I've never really had this dire need to just be on road or be in several cities or witness the running of the bulls or anything. I've done a lot of token traveling, and that token traveling has gotten me through me feeling like I want to travel. I love hearing stories. Like I love, you and I talk for, and I love hearing comics talk about being on the road and stuff like that. But one of the things, Clayton, I'll tell you what I learned early on, probably because of your brother and a lot of other people around them, is that you have to really, really love traveling in order to travel for work. Yeah. So, well,
that's the only place you can make money now. I mean, there's not really much money in specials anymore. Netflix isn't throwing around cash like they used to at the beginning. Amazon doesn't throw around cash like they used to. And so the only place that any of these artists, and not just comedy, but musicians as well, is from live touring. That's where the money is. So when you go out on tour, you are battling for venues and tour routes against everybody. And that, I mean, you're not necessarily battling like, the stadium acts like the Foo Fighters and things like that, or Taylor Swift, but you're up against any number of arena and theater artists that are out there touring, because that's the only place to make money. But I wanted to come back to India.
But wait a minute. Actually, let's connect these two.
Oh, connect the dot.
How is it that you...
Go on.
How is it that... So you understand that about North America, right? You're going to your art centers, you're talking about all this blah, 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 blah. And it makes sense to you, right? About how you're competing for who in those markets. But then when you go to Africa and India,
I'm talking globally. I don't care about North America. I'm talking you're on a global.
But there's a global infrastructure for all of these people to be working?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. They're not just touring in North America.
See,
you have to be touring globally. Comics, I can't speak to all comics.
Well, that's what I'm wondering about.
But the major comics that are out there touring are touring globally.
Is Louis C.K.?
Louis C.K. is touring globally. He was just over in Scandinavia. He's doing all kinds of stuff.
So,
Tom Segura, Burt Kreischer, Bill Burr.
Internationally?
They're all going. They're all touring internationally.
Middle East?
Middle East.
Huh.
Andrew Schultz is there, as we're speaking.
Andrew Schultz
is in Abu Dhabi. He's coming up in Abu Dhabi. Just went on sale. Probably into a second show there. Kevin Hart's out there. Everybody's out there. Why not?
I just, you know what? I feel like there was just a disconnect for the longest time, just in even style and want of audience.
No, that's all thanks to the internet. That's all brought it all together. They all want what we've all got. So they're down with it. They're into it. They want everything that we've got. They want it out there in the world. But coming back to India and going there as a child. So you never felt the compulsion to go back. I felt the same way. We used to go fairly regularly. And I really enjoyed it. But after that, I think the last time I was there was 84, and then it was literally 30 years later that I went back. No, maybe not 30, but I think about 24 years later, I went back. But in that interim period, I had no great desire to go back. But what I'm finding is, as I'm getting older, I identify more with Indianness than I ever did when I was younger. I feel more of a connection to other Indian people than I ever did. And I never had any connection to Indian people when I was younger.
Are we going to change the name of this podcast? Is that what you're telling me? To
Indians for the Table? Fries for the Indians?
We'd be working it if it was Indians for the Table. We'd be serving.
Yeah.
Can I get a couple Indians for the table?
Do please. Do.
Okay.
No, but I do find as I get older, I feel more and more
akin to.
Yeah. So when I see whomever it is, I do feel more of a kinship towards them than I ever did when I was younger, because I felt completely not disenfranchised. I just felt like we were different because we're Anglo-Indians, so we're not Indian. Right. We were always on the outside.
You were the original coconuts.
No.
Yeah.
How so?
You looked brown on the outside and you felt white on the inside.
We didn't feel white. No. We identified because we were mixed with the British. We spoke Hindi and English, but we were also, my parents would have tea every day, which most Indians do anyway, every afternoon. And English was the first language in the house, even in India. For my grandparents and my great-grandparents, they always spoke English first. And we were Christian, right? Which goes back generations, right? And, on both sides, there's, Scottish, Welsh, Irish, all kinds of stuff in there. But there's also Assamese on my mom's side from Assam, and my grandfather on my dad's side was from Madras, and he was quite dark.
I sensed the Assamese.
Yeah.
I sensed it a little bit.
You feel a little bit of
It makes so much more sense now.
It does.
Yeah.
The Assamese-ness.
Yeah. Was that from ancestry you got that, or did you just look at you?
No, actually we got it through the family history. Our families, we've got sort of a decent amount of people who can sort of give you bits and pieces of our family history. And because of all the mixes and mongrelness of our bloodline, I guess it's a little bit easier to do. I don't know how people from India whose families have been there for, like 1,000 years. I don't know how they trace their bloodline, because there wasn't a lot of formal recording of births
Right.
and deaths and lineage and things like that over the last, some will blame the British, over the last couple of 100 years, but I don't know how well it was documented in that time. But for us, because of the mix of the European mix, the English mix, or whatever you want to call it, there seems to be a little bit more following of who we are and where we come from.
So what I find most interesting about you talking about this is that to a common person that's listening to this conversation, they'll think, okay, this is a very unique and interesting perspective of second generation South Asian, right? Like, with a very early immigrant experience in terms of years, right?
65, yeah.
65, right. But the trickle down to somebody like me from a watcher's point of view is fairly interesting too, because over the years, your brother, right, has spoken about his observations about everything from being disenfranchised with Indians, right to the difference between Indians here and Indians there, and right through not being able to identify with the types of Indians that roam around the world. So I find this sort of origin story about what you're talking about a little bit more important to understand in the context, because you really do become, you two, like in your travels, become a little bit like anthropologists in that, you probably remember going to a city and noticing when the first few Indians were in the audience versus selling out, stadiums and going to colleges and universities. You probably remember these types of changes as well.
I don't remember it as well as he does, because that stuff came about in the 90s, and he was very heavily involved in the Indian community in the 90s.
Oh,
because he was
felt like
DJ.
that was
He was
his
DJ
urban-
Russell,
Oh,
and he
yeah.
was with Sunshine, and they were doing those day jams and all that kind of thing.
He did day jams?
He did day jams out in Mississauga at the roller skating rink and stuff like that, where the old Indian fathers would come with a video camera to record all the kids in the lineup to send it back home to show how wayward they'd become from the flock, and how they were being evil and corrupted by the West and all that kind of thing. So he was part of all of that.
Do you still have that footage you were taking?
I didn't take it. I didn't take it.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah. That was a big thing for him. But I couldn't understand what he was doing, because I didn't understand. I'm like, what are you doing with all these Indian dudes? And they're like really Indian, and you're playing like Bhangra and all this kind. Like, it made no sense to me.
He actually
Absolutely
spun
none.
Bhangra back then.
He did something with it, but he was just playing around with it. But it made no sense to me, and I couldn't understand why he had like so many Indian friends either.
Right.
At that time, I'm like, I don't get it, because we didn't grow up like that.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was a phase in his life that.
I don't know if it was a phase. I think it was fairly organic, because.
But you're feeling that now.
Well, no, now that's what I'm saying. That's what's interesting about it, is that he had embraced the community earlier on than I did. And I was out there doing my thing. I lived in Europe. I was doing all kinds of other stuff. And I never saw the need to sort of gravitate back towards any kind of Indianness. And I don't know that I was specifically running away from it per se, but I just didn't speak to me at all. I had no real connection. A lot of those waves of immigrants that were coming at that time were, Punjabi and Gujarati and things like that. And there was just no, like, I had no way to relate to them. And also, having come here in 1965, right? There was a huge generational gap, and then there was a huge cultural gap, because effectively came to Canada when I was 10 months old. I'm Canadian. Right.
Okay, but so again, let me just put that's the beginning of almost like these different, like every 5 years types of immigrants that would end up coming to these parts. And so you get this window of all these different types of things that are happening within the Indian culture as a result of the immigrants that are coming into this country. Follow me for a second.
Okay.
So now you go back to India. What is the type, like, what is the most predominant type of personality that you interact with when you go back to India now? Is it an old school, like, person that's been there for years?
No, it's young Indian kids who actually speak, for the most part, they have sort of a bit of a North American inflection to their accents.
Right.
I mean, some of them have accents, and then you joke about it, and they're like, "I don't have an accent. What are you talking about? I have no accent."
Yeah.
Right. So
Was
there's
that
those
your
guys.
impression, or is that how you talk
that was
when
me doing Mohit.
Okay.
And then
you have a cousin named Mohit?
I do.
Yeah.
Actually, no. But they're all kind of sweet kids. Like they're nice kids, and all these young people that I meet there, for the most part, I really, really like them. And it's a really strange thing. I just feel like, oh, you guys are so damn cute. Look at y'all. You're so cute, you little Indian kids.
Yeah.
But I do. And then when I come back, and you see, you see Indians everywhere. I mean, Jesus, there's a lot of us here, right? But I do feel a bit of a kinship to them. And especially the ones when I was younger that had recently emigrated here, that were like young couples. I always saw my parents in them.
That's interesting.
I always saw when I'd see these young, like they just got married in India, they've come over and they're just trying to find their way. And I've helped a number of them over the years with employment and things like that. I always see my parents in them. So I always sort of picture my parents when they first came over in 1965 with no money, nothing, and trying to figure out their way here. And back then there wasn't, it didn't have the same level of community and things like that. So there was an Anglo-Indian community that they went towards. But
so now we come full circle with the talk about parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is, again, you've been parenting your whole life.
I have.
And even in these observations that we're talking about, that's part of you learning how to become a better parent, is you learning from your parents' experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating to me.
My son, who's mixed, because much like you, I'm in an interracial marriage, which just sounds so weird to say because I never think of us as like interracial.
Oh, she does.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. She's got this old brown man on the other side of the bed. So yeah, well, she's gonna fuck this guy.
And what about you? Where do you sleep?
Yeah. Hello, Chico. Yeah. So, but my son actually identifies as Indian. He actually says, well, you got a good tan, bud. He goes, well, I'm Indian, which is really interesting to me. That's where he gravitates towards. Because do your kids identify as Indian? Like, do they say, oh, I'm Indian, I'm son of Mohit?
Yeah, that gets them a free samosa everywhere they go. My kids identify, you know what? I don't really necessarily put them through the skills test, but they definitely say that they're Indian. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Indo-Canadian, maybe.
That's weird. But yeah, I get it. And how does Katie feel about that? Like, does she sort of like?
I don't.
It's weird, right? Because you're trying to figure out like how we've got these mixed children, right? And how do they see themselves in the world? So when we're no longer here, when they're cut loose and everything like that, how will the world see them?
Yeah, but listen, you and I are two very weird people. Like his uncle is Russell, right? And is brown ambassador dude. Mm-hmm. I worked in media, so my kids see me with every superstar in India, like a picture with every superstar in India. So,
are they able to quantify who those individuals are? No. It's just like, oh,
they don't get it.
Look at
right?
the two browns.
But they do know in India that person is a bigger star than Tom Cruise or whatever, or that my dad has like history in media from back in the day. When I went to India as a kid, there's pictures of me with like movie producers and stuff like that.
Was your dad in the business?
No. It's a whole different weird kind of story. Yeah. The guy who actually sued Dr. Dre for that big Indian sample back in the day. I had dinner at his house when I was a kid. Oh,
really?
And yeah, it's so an odd, weird hip hop story, which actually comes back to Rakim because Rakim was in that song. But anyway, that's a story for another day. So my Indian kinship with my kids is really weird because they've seen that their dad hasn't been back in 25 years, but everything about India has come to him, including like...
That's really interesting.
Right. Yeah. So I hosted a live show from Toronto for the Green Carpet Awards thing that I did for India. And I haven't been to that country since or before or after, like, you know what I mean? So
do they like the movies? Do they ever watch them with you?
My daughter loves it. My kids have a lot of questions. Like the suspension of belief is a little bit weird.
And what about the food?
My kids love the food. Yeah. My whole family loves
do you make the food?
We both make the food, but we're horrible at it. Come on.
Oh, Indian food is so fucking hard to make. And if it's good, it's really good. But if it can go to shit so quickly, right? Like it's such a unique kind of
No,
thing where it's like, it's not like,
unless
oh, this
it's an
steak
auntie in
is
the
okay
kitchen.
or this roast chicken is okay. Like Indian food, if it's not like bang on, it's really not good.
So
it's like
what-
really good or really not good.
What part of India has the best Indian food?
That I cannot speak to because I don't know it regionally. I only know what's here. And I only discovered like something which I know is not that Indian, like butter chicken, somewhere in my 30s. I only had butter chicken in my 30s because it's
chicken's
not
not
part
really
of our,
good.
but it's not like a
Right.
real thing.
Yeah, it's not.
And I recently had dinner with a fellow Indian
Yeah.
and his white wife. And I ordered butter chicken and he just kind of looked at me and goes, it's not a real thing. I go, yeah, I know, but I really like it. I really do like the butter chicken. And our food is different. The Anglo-Indian cuisine is different.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, totally. Totes
Like-
for goats, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Did you just think it was just like,
Yeah, just Indian food with
it's
like
curry.
salt and pepper.
Woo.
Yeah.
No, it's completely different.
Huh.
It is, I mean, there is like curry and rice and there's dal, but we put potatoes in with the curry. So if you have chicken
So
curry,
do we.
there's potatoes in
Oh,
there. Okay.
yeah, you messed that up.
Right? No, it's good. It's actually
Yeah.
really good.
What's wrong?
And then part of when we were growing up and with our food, it wasn't like we ate Indian food every day. And I know a lot of Indian people I've worked with, tons of Indian people who have to eat Indian 24/7. Like they cannot
Soul food.
not have Indian
Right.
food. And for us, we would have like chicken curry on Monday, and then Tuesday would be roast chicken.
You
And
know
then
what?
Wednesday would be a different curry, and then Thursday would be like pork chops.
I guarantee people who are listening are starved by the time they finish listening to what we're talking about. So I'm hungry. Can I go eat?
Yeah, do you want to go eat?
Yeah.
Can we get some fries for the table?